Hello everyone, today I want to show you how to make this Kisses macrame bracelet, and it looks like this. So these are the axes, or the kisses, going all the way around, and I have a button closure here with a loop, and the bracelet looks like this. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. So these are the things that we're going to need. Now the cord that I'm working with for this bracelet is 1mm satin cord for both of the colours here, and I'm just working with a burgundy colour and then a black one. You can also choose whatever colours you want to. And then finally here I have a shank button, looks like that. And I'm just going to use that to finish off the bracelet and use as my closure as well. So get all your things together and let's get started. So what we need to do first is cut a cord, and what I have here is 4 lengths of 2.5 meters each. And I have 2 of each colour. So what we're going to do to start out with is make the loop. So that means what we need to do first is find the middle of all these cords. So put them all together at the end, on each end, and then also put them together like this. So all the ends are kind of in the same place. And up here we have my finger with a loop. That's roughly the middle of the cords. So what I'm then going to do is keep hold of that middle and attach it to my board here. I'm just working on a macrame board. And I'm going to take it at the top first, put it in one of the slots, and then just still I'm holding on to the middle here, just pull that down so that is roughly in the middle of my actual board, just to kind of keep that for reference. And then I'm just going to sort out the 2 black ones. I'm going to put in the bottom slot as well, that's equal to it, and then these 2, the burgundy ones, are going to be the first cords that I'm going to be working with. So what we need to do to make that loop is make a section of square knots here first. So I'm going to use these burgundy cords for that. So just start making a square knot. If you're a bit unfamiliar with basic macrame knots, I do have a video that explains that, so I'll put a link to that in the description box below. Otherwise I'm going to take my left one, bring that over the others. You can start with the other side, that's fine, as long as you stay consistent, and then bring the right one over that, underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop. And now first I'm just going to leave it here in the middle of my board, because as you remember I use that for reference. That's the middle of my cords that's attached to the board. So that's the first half of my square knot, and then to do the other half and tighten that first one in place there, I'm going to take my right side, bring that over, and then the left one, bring that underneath everything in the middle and pull it up through the loop. So it looks a bit messy now, but it's because it's not tightened yet. So bring that first one right there, leave that in the middle, and then we're going to tighten the other one, and that means the knot now is going to stay in place and stay right where we want it to. So that's the first full square knot. So now what we need to do is continue making some square knots to be able to have enough length of the square knots to create a loop with them. So just continue the exact same way. Start with the same side that you start with your first one to stay consistent, and just keep making some square knots. Now how many you need to do all depends on how large you need your loop to be, which will then be dependent on what button you're using or if you're using something else. But just make another section here of your square knots. So now I've made some more square knots here, just continued like I showed you, and when I think I have maybe about half of what I need for the loop, doesn't have to be precise yet because we can always add more, what I'm going to do is actually flip my board around, or whatever you're working on, and then also make some on the other side, because bear in mind we started in about the middle of all our cords, so all these 2 burgundy cords that we've been using on this side will now be shorter than the ones that we have left from the other side here. So that's why I'm going to make about half with one end there on one side, and then I'm going to work on the other side here and do the same thing. So just use the other cords, you can put these out of the way so they don't get confusing, like that, and then just start your square knots on this side. Now just bear in mind you will have to start from the other side with this to continue the same pattern, but otherwise you just continue square knots. And then when you get to a point you think you have it long enough to make the loop that you need, just take it off the board, shape it into a loop, and then test it on your button, because you can always add more square knots in if it's not quite right. So I've now reached a point where I feel this might be long enough to make the loop that I need. So I'm just going to take it off my board here just to measure it and test it against my button. So what I'm going to do is then take this section of square knots and then just start shaping it here into like a loop shape on the flat side. So like this, that's why you just got to shape it, and then it will stay in place once we fasten it as well. So it looks something like this. So just keep hold of the two ends there and have them pushed together like that. So we know this is what the loop is going to look like. Take your button and then just pass it through to see if it'll fit. So basically just testing it, and this seems pretty perfect size wise. It'll go through, but it's not too big either. So that's just the right amount of knots for me. So what we need to do now is basically then fasten it in place so it will stay like this. So this is where I'm going to get some pins out as well and fasten it in place because it makes it a lot easier to work with. I'm just going to place it on my board here and then take the T-pins that I'm going to use and just pin it down so it sits how I want it to sit. It's going to be a lot easier to work with. And I'm also going to be using these pins throughout the rest of the bracelet. So make sure that they sit next to each other like this. So just like that. So then to secure them in place, what I'm going to do is use these two outer cords. So one from each side, and the rest is have them coming down the middle here. And again I'm going to use a square knot to do this. So just start, again I start with my left side, bring that over all the other ones. So all the ones in the middle here now are all your holding cords. And then these two working cords, one from each side. Just do a square knot just like we did to make the loop itself. Make sure you catch all your holding cords there. And you can just kind of pull them down just like that. And then tighten the first half. Do the other half of the square knot. And this is just going to secure it in place so it all sits right. And then we can continue with the bracelet afterwards. Just like that. So now you can also easily take the pins out and you have your loop there and it's nice and secure. So then now we've made the loop, it's time to start making the actual bracelet. So to do that, what we need to do is take all the holding cords here that we just used under the square knot and split them up. What we need is, I'm going to take one of my burgundy cords there for each side and then also two of the back ones for each side. So we end up with 3 and equal out the colours as well. So just like this. And then we're going to start with one side at a time. So I'm just going to take all the ones on the right side here and just put them out to the side. Doesn't matter what side you start with. We're going to be doing the same thing on both. And then we need to start making some knots around these. So now these 3 are going to be the holding cords and this one is going to be the working cord. And the knot that we're going to be using now is the one that's called the vertical lax head knot. So I'm going to grab hold of these with one hand and then use this to make the knots with the working cord here. I'm going to bring it over first and then pull it back underneath and then back out through the loop and pull it all the way through just like that, and you get a 6. So the first time here we're going over the holding cords and then tighten that, and now we need to go under the holding cords, back around and through the loop. So again you're getting a 6, but you're just looping your cord around in the opposite direction. And then tighten that, just like that. And try, when you're holding your holding cords here, to make them come out at an angle whenever you're tightening your knots. Because they need to come out a little bit like this from each other, on each side. And you just make sure that when you're tightening your knot, you hold the holding cords in the direction that you want your row of knots to go. So keep going like this. That's 2 knots now. So we start, go over, back around and through the loop. So you get your 6 and then go under, around and through, just like that. And what we need here in this row is a total of 5 knots. So I've made 3 so far, so we just need to make another 2, over, around and through, tighten, and under, around and through. That makes 4, and the very last one, over, around and through, and under, around and through. So just like that. So that was one side, that's done now. We're ready for the next step. So what we need to do now is the exact same thing on the other side here. It's just all opposite, of course. So take your holding cords here, all 3 of them, and then all this is, we're doing the same knot, it's the vertical lark's head knot, we're just working with the opposite hands. So that means in this case I'm holding my holding cords with my left one, whereas I held them with the right one on the other side, and just using my working cord with my right hand. But still bring it over, around and through. Remember to then hold your holding cords out a bit of an angle, tighten it, and then under, around and through. So just like that. And that's your first full one. Over, around and through. As you can see here, we get a reverse 6 on this side. So a way to remember it as well. Tighten it and under, around and through. So just like that, and that's 2 as well. So we need the exact same amount of knots as on the other side, so that means we need to make another 3. So we have 5 on this side as well as the other side. So now we reach this point, we have 5 vertical lark's head knots on each side here, and this is the very beginning of the bracelet. So what we need to do now is start adding in our X's. So again, we need to split up our cords here, so taking the other burgundy ones out to the side again, and the black ones here in the middle. So we just separate them out, because it's the black ones that's going to make the X's in my case. And again, I'm just going to take some more pins as well, and just make sure that these are sitting in the right place. So just separate them out a little bit, pin in the end of it. You can always adjust it a little bit more, but it's just to make it easier to work with. So just like this. So they are fully in position and ready for the next step. So now what I'm going to do is focus on making the X. So I'm just going to take my burgundy ones here, the ones on the side, just kind of out of the way so we don't get them mixed up, and just work with these black ones for now. So we're still making our vertical lark's head knots with these 2 cords only, so just the black ones for now. What I'm going to do is take the inner one that's further towards the middle here, and that's going to be the working cord. The other one here is my holding cord. So again, just take your working cord over, back around and through, and then tighten it. And then what we need to do is this row of knots need to be coming in towards the middle. Again, a bit of an angle. So when I'm tightening the knot, I'm going to be holding the holding cord in the direction that I want the row to go. So something like this. And then go under, around and through. And tighten. Just like that. What we need to do is make 4 of these. So over, around and through. Every time remember to hold the holding cord in the right direction. Under, around and through. Like that. That's 2. We need another 2. Over, around and through. Under, around and through. And the last one, over, around and through. And then under, around and through. So just like that. So now that's coming in towards the middle again. So that's the one side here. Just going to put it to the side because we need to do the exact same thing with the other 2 black ones here. So the other 2 on this side that we separated out. And again, the one further towards the middle is going to be the working cord. So we're now switching hands again. So the job that they're doing. The holding cord is now my right hand. So I take my working cord over, around and through. And tighten while you're holding it in the right direction. So coming in towards the middle at an angle. Then under, around and through. And tighten. Over, around and through. See, on this side we're getting a normal 6. Under, around and through. Whereas on the other one we were getting a reverse 6. Over, around and through. And under, around and through. And that's 3. We need the same amount as the other side, so it's 4, so we just need the last one here. Over, around and through, and under, around and through. Just like that. So now we have both of our sides done here, and they're both coming towards the middle. What we need to do is have them crossing over in the middle there and then fasten them together. Now this is where you can just readjust your positioning of your pins. I can see that one's a little bit wide out. So just take it out and place it back in, because these two need to meet in the middle comfortably and not really have too much of a gap. So just take your time making sure they're sitting correctly. Something like this. So when they meet comfortably just like that. So now to fasten the two sides together here, what we need to do is use one cord from each. So what we have is the holding cords are the ones kind of running out. That's on the outside now almost of these cords, and the ones coming towards the inside are the two working cords. So what we need to do is I'm going to be using the holding cords from each side. So I'm going to let my right working cord just come underneath the other one. Doesn't really matter which one goes under or over what, but just like that. And I'm going to leave them to come at the back. So these are on top of them. So just like that. So what I'm going to do is kind of pretend like these aren't here right now. And I'm going to use the holding cords. I take my right one, cross it over the left one. So the one coming underneath from the left side is the working cord. And what I'm going to do is take that around my finger and through the loop. Pull it all the way through, just like this, and tighten it. And this is a half hitch, and then once more around your finger and through the loop, and that's a double half hitch. Just make sure the first one's nice and tight, and then tighten up the second one there. So just like that. So now the two sides are attached. So that's the first half of our X. So what we need to do now is make the second half. So these two were the ones we just attached in the middle there, the two original holding cords. So again, that's going to still be the holding cord. So I take the one that I just left underneath, that's kind of just crossing towards the left side here. That's going to be the working cord for this left side. And then what we do now is go back to making the vertical latch head knots. So this working cord needs to go over, back around, and through. So just like that. And then go under, around, and through. So there, that's the first one, your first vertical latch head knot. Again, over, around, and through. And what we're doing is this row is building continuously from that one on the opposite side. So you want it to go basically a straight line across like that. That's the second one. And we also need to make the same amount as the other one, so that's 4 of these knots in total. Number 3, and the last one. And under, around and through. So just like that. So now we almost have a finished X here. We just need that last part as well. So that was that side now. I'm just going to put those to the side and move over to the other ones. So the last black ones that I have here, in my case. So we just need to make sure we're using the right ones. The one coming from the middle that we attach the middle with is going to be the holding cord. The one that's kind of loose from the back that we just left is the working cord, and we'll bring that down just like the other side, and then make a vertical latch head knots. Same thing, over, around, and through. Just on the opposite side here, tighten. Under, around, and through, and tighten. And again, we'll need the same amount of knots, so that's 4. Under, around, and through. In this case, we're continuing the straight line from the opposite side here, so that row is going pretty much this way, straight across. Over, around, and through. And under, around, and through. And that's what's making the X. The last one, over, around, and through, and under, around, and through. So just like that, and there we basically have the finished X. So now we're at this point, we kind of have the finished X but only really attached on one side. So what we need to do is make the sides here, then be able to connect the other side of the X. So just kind of keep these cords out of the way. We need to go back to the sides now, work with our burgundy cords again in my case. And then we basically need to build the sides up here. So again, I'm going to grab them. The one that was the holding cord previously is still the holding cord. So the one that was the working cord to make these first knots, I'm going to still use as a working cord for now. Just put these to the side, and we're just going to continue making the same knot still. So the vertical lark's head knot. So I take my working cord over, around and through. So on this side you get your 6, and then tighten that. And in this case what I'm going to make sure that this row does is come straight down, because it needs to meet up with the other side of that X. And then under, around and through. And then just continue making your knots. And now it might be different how many you need depending on what material that you use. If you're using a different kind of cord or something. But I know in this case I'm going to need 6 knots here to connect down to the other side of the X to get the right spacing. So just make however many you feel it's necessary to comfortably reach the other end, like that. So what we have so far is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one, it's going to fit perfectly, is number 6. And the way you can count your knots as well, just a little note, is 1 full vertical lark's head knot. If you see on the side here you have these little loops, that's basically 1 full knot. So you just count those loops, and that's an easy way to make sure you have the right amount. So then to actually connect the side to the X there, what I'm going to do is then take the 2 cords from that X that's down on this side, so the other one's left to that side, and again just bring them in with the holding cord. So now we again have 3 holding cords instead of just the 1, and just make another vertical lark's head knot around, over, around and through, so you get your reverse, or your normal 6. Tighten that, under, around and through, just like that, and there you have that side of your X attached. So then to do the other side here, we'll be doing the exact same thing, but again just swapping hands. So that means we need to make all our vertical lark's head knots here coming down at a straight line. So the one that was your holding cord is still the holding cord, and the outer one here is the working cord. So just using opposite hands, around, over, around and through to get your reverse 6 on this side, and tighten, under, around and through, and tighten, and again make the same amount of knots on this side as you did on that. In my case that's 6, so if you need 6, make 6, otherwise just make the amount that you need to reach the bottom of that side of the X. So I now have my 6 knots on this side as well. We reached all the way down to the bottom of the X on this side. Again just take the holding cords, the holding cord you just used, and then all the cords, the 2 here from the X, and bring them together, so all these are now the holding cords. Make another vertical lark's head knot with your working cord that you were just using to gather all these together, just like this. So there we go, now that side is attached as well, and we now have the first X in place. So what you want to do now is basically continue all these steps, because we now need to make the next X. We start out the exact same way as the beginning. Separate the cords out. So take my case of burgundy to the side, and then just use the black ones here to create the next X the exact same way. So figure out which one you want to use as your holding cord, and then the other one is the working cord furthest towards the center there. Now as you go, you'll find that if you tend to use the same cord as your working cord every time, you'll find that that cord gets quite a bit shorter than the other one. So what you can do as you go, if you find that a bit further down the bracelet, and you might be nervous that you're going to run out of the cord, just swap them over and use the one that's longest for your holding cord, for the working cord, sorry. So you can always just check the lengths of your cords and then make sure you use the longest one for your working cord. So you can do that here for the X. Just continue then. Do your vertical lark's head knots, have them come out the row here at an angle, over first and then under, like that, and just keep going with that. Again, like before, we'll make 4 knots, and then connect the two sides together, and then make 4 on the other side as well. So that's how you continue making your X's. And it's the same principle here with the cords on the side. So if I just put these to the side for now, when you continue, you just then use these 2 cords to make the same row that we did up here. So in my case that means 6 vertical lark's head knots to reach down to the other side of the X once we've made that. And again, the same principle. You'll find if you keep using the same one as your working cord, that one will get shorter than the other one. So what you can do as well, eventually, if you feel you might run out of that one, swap them around and then start using the long one as your working cord. So that's something you can do throughout just to make sure you don't run out of cord. But otherwise you just keep doing this, making your X's all the way down to roughly the length that you need your bracelet to be. So the way we want to measure it is by taking your measuring tape, placing it at the top of the loop, so start measuring from there, and then right below your very last X. Now we're still yet to attach the button to this, but because the button's going to go inside the loop and sit when it's closed, we don't need to include that in the measurement. So just measure to here. We still have just a little bit of finishing off as well, just like at the top there, but you just always need to know when to stop making the X's. So now that I'm happy with the length of my bracelet, what we just need to do is finish it off at the end here. So what we need to do is make the 2 sides here come back towards the middle again, just like you did in the beginning. So to do that, I'm going to first just get some more pins and just place them right here, just so I know that this area will stay in place. So it's going to be a little bit easier to work with as well. So put your pins in. Just like that. So when you're making your knots, these aren't going to go anywhere. So to replicate the beginning part, we need to make some more vertical lark's head knots. Again, just start with one side at a time, and these 3 are going to still be the holding cords, and this outer one is still the working cord. And we just continue making our vertical lark's head knots over, around and through, and under, around and through. So just like that. Now what we need to do is have this row of knots coming towards the middle the same way in the beginning, so we get this kind of little triangle shape. And we also want to have the same amount of knots. So in the beginning what I had was 5 knots on each side on this very last row. So we need to do that again. And now I have 3 because I already had 1 after I finished the last X. So just include that. So we need to make 5 in total for the 2 sides to come in and meet in the middle. So that's 4. The very last one. Just like that. It's going to sit like this. Now we need to do the same on the other side. So to do that, we do the exact same thing. You just put these out of the way a little bit. Grab your 3 holding cords there, and then your 1 working cord. So do the same thing, just with opposite hands. Go over, around, and through. Tighten. And over, under, around, and through, and tighten. And that's 2 already because we just had the one from after making the X. So same thing, we need 5 on this side as well. So the 2 sides here can come and meet in the middle just perfectly. And we can finish the bracelet off nicely. So the last one here. Just like that. So now the 2 sides will come in and meet just like this. And we have a nice little finishing at the end here. So to secure them in the middle there, what we need to do is now all these 6 holding cords become kind of the holding cords together instead of 3 separately. And still the 2 working cords, 1 from each section, we're going to do square knot with them around the 6 holding cords now. Make sure you get all of them. Just like this. And then tighten that. Nice and tight. You can always pull down the holding cords a little bit to make it sit right. Finish off the square knot with the other side. Just like this. So now the 2 sides are held together in the middle there by just that square knot. So now we basically come to the point where we finished off the end of the bracelet there. All that's left to do is attach the button to be able to use that as a closure. So to do that, we need to work with these holding cords. Now personally, I think there's too many here. Also, because the shank button here, we need the cords to go through, and I can get 2, maybe a bit more through, but I won't be able to get all 6 through. So what I'm going to do is actually get rid of some of these. Now I want to keep the burgundy ones just because they kind of match the border colour, and these 2 I'm going to still use, so we're just focusing on the holding cords. So what I want to do is actually get rid of all the black ones here, all the colour that I use for the X's. Now what you can do before you cut anything off, if you want a bit extra security, is just go in with a bit of glue and just put a little bit around just these holding cords that you want to cut off. You don't have to put it on top of that last square knot that we did, but just basically just below it, on top of those holding cords that we're going to cut off, because that's just going to help secure them in place. Also, when we make another square knot on top, it's going to really seal it in. So it's just if you want that little bit extra security, you can do that. So now we put the glue there, then to help seal it in place, before I cut them off completely, I'm just going to do first half of the next square knot, because then that's going to sit right on top of that glue when you tighten it, just like that, because that's going to then really secure these holding cords in place. And now this is time I want to go in and then start cutting them off. You can't just leave this to dry a little bit, just until you're completely sure so it's going to stay in place, or at least just till it goes tacky. But I'm then going to get my scissor, go in and take some of my cords here. You can just start with cutting off one at a time, and just do it as close as possible without cutting anything else off, of course, like this. So that's 2 off. So what I'm going to do is to start with cutting those 2 off, and then I'm going to finish off that square knot. So that is going to end up having 2 square knots now, and just make sure if you have little ends there that your other half of the square knot goes right on top of them, like that. And then what you can do is just repeat this step one more time to cut off the last 2 of the black ones here. So if you want, just get a little bit more glue, put just around those. It's just going to make it a bit more secure. So once you have a bit of glue in there, if you choose to use that, just do another half of your next square knot here, the first half, around the 4 holding cords. That goes on top of that glue then. And before you make the second half, you can just cut off the last 2 cords here in the exact same way. Make sure to avoid everything else, like that. Finish off that square knot, and make sure it goes on top if you have any little tails left there, just like this. So now all we have left are the 2 working cords, and now 2 holding cords as well. So now this is where we now want to add in the button. We're ready for that because I'm down to my last 2 holding cords here. So what I'm just going to do is take the button and put on the 2 holding cords, just like that. Push it up. I'm going to have it sitting like this, and then we tighten that in place with another square knot, just like that. And then just like you would capture a bead, make sure that the working cords go underneath the button there. You capture this in place as well. Finish off that half. Now I like to just do 2 square knots on the other side of the button here. Just makes it a little bit extra secure. Just like this. So now that's in place. So you can see the button's nice and secure now. So that is basically it finished now. All there's left to do, I'm going to take it off the board, and then we just need to get rid of the ends here, the excess cord that we have down here. Now what I'm going to do with that is get my glue out again, and all you want to do is right around that last square knot here, you want to put glue inside the well that you'll be able to see in your square knots, and also around the ends where your cords are coming out. So just put some glue around there. Also, if you're using, say, a satin cord like me, a synthetic cord, you can also singe the ends down with a lighter. That's completely up to you, but I just like using glue here. So just glue down the ends, and then you can go in and cut them off as close as you can get, and then that'll be your finished bracelet. So I've now finished off the ends here, and you then have your finished bracelet. It looks like this. And you're ready to just use the button here to close it up with the loop, and then there you have your bracelet. with all your kisses or X's on it. So that's what it looks like. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to make this bracelet, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this beaded vertical lax head knot bracelet, and it looks like this. So this is using the vertical lax head knot with cord, and I've just added beads to it to give a different effect and different colours as well. And on this one I've just done a button closure, but you can obviously do whatever you want. You could use ribbon ends if you want to in place. But this is the bracelet. So if you want to learn how to make this,